Okay, so welcome to my focus group for Unit 12, the dissertation unit for the UAL Level 3 Extended Diploma in Creative Media Technology course. Um, my focus group is based on my essay topic question, which is, can we believe anything we read in the media anymore? So to do this focus group, I'll just be going through a few little slides, shouldn't take too long, of different types of media that are represented to the public. And basically, I want to just gather your thoughts and perspectives on them and what you think about them.
All
So,
right.
moving on to the first slide. So, this first one is the general perspectives on the media. So, just as a little warm up, so starter questions. Obviously, here's some different media logos to help you out. Um, how much trust would you say you have in the media? What is your preferred news sources? And have you ever encountered any misinformation whilst accessing news? So either you, Vic, or Alex can start, whoever.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes, like with the big, I don't know, they're called legacy media, sort of like the big establishment, sort of. I don't know, your BBC, your ITV, your Telegraph, the newspaper stuff. Um, there's some trust, I guess, because there's sort of they're big and definitive, like Reuters, you know who they are. Um, but you can like the Telegraph in particular is like really, really like outrageously biased in its news, and I would not trust anything that they put out there because some of the headlines are just ridiculous. Um, so I just don't have really much um faith in like online sources as well. I feel like they can be quite misinformationy as well. I guess my preferred news source would be BBC, but I don't know, sometimes they are a bit iffy.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, what about you, Vic?
I don't really have very much trust in the media with news sort of stuff, just because I feel like what they do is they milk things dry and they will exploit things in certain cases just to get a good story and to get a bit of money in their pockets. So I don't really have very much trust in the media, but when I do want to sit and read the news, I'll usually go on the Warrington Guardian just because it's stuff happening locally.
I'd agree with Victor in like the sort of the money making side of it, particularly with
Mm.
like tabloid journalism as well. I would not trust anything that comes out on like the Sun or the Daily Mail or like sources like that you know are just in the past have been really, really dodgy. So that's sort of like ruined my trust with those kind of sources.
Yeah, I'd agree, to be honest. I'd say for me, I'd say like it's definitely the more the mainstream. Obviously, people have confidence in mainstream media has obviously collapsed a lot over the years as well. But I'd say definitely in terms of that instant news stories that you want to access, I definitely would say the mainstream is always the one to go to. Obviously, having your own preference is obviously down to you, and which one you would single down the most. The most trustworthy, obviously, is your own personal judgment. But I'd say for me, accessing like BBC, Channel 4, and in terms of like newspapers, I'm kind of like with Alex. So in terms of like the tabloids and stuff, I'm very iffy of what I read. But if I absolutely must read one of them, I'd probably either go for the Guardian or the Mirror, probably. Um, so yeah, thanks for that. So moving on to the second slide. This is the partisan versus non-partisan media. So obviously, if you guys know what these two types of media means, that's great. But obviously, in case you didn't, I wrote the definitions down. So obviously, partisan outlets, media outlets, are reporting news and events with a distinct political bias, basically, where the way they report the news has got their own personal agenda. Like they have a political bias that they lean towards. So either they could lean towards the Conservative Party or they could be more in favour of Labour, the way they report the news. And obviously a non-partisan outlet is obviously reporting news and news balanced on a balanced standpoint without affiliation to a political party or organisation. So the way they report the news basically has got no um, personal agenda or campaign, so to speak. So like the way they report the news is supposedly meant to be impartial. Obviously, if you think that you find outlets that do that, that's your own choice. But obviously, that's what it's supposed to mean anyway. So I'm just going to show you these two different videos. One of them is obviously an example of a partisan outlet, obviously a partisan media product, which is from Katie Hopkins' Shit Bonkers Britain video series, which she posts on YouTube, and also a brief news bulletin from the BBC News. So I will show you the first one. If you have any issues, just let me know listening to it.
Breaking news here in Britain on August the 23rd. Energy prices set to rise by 10%, just in time for it getting colder when you actually need to use your heating. Obviously, Labour have made the bold decision to take away money from elderly people who need heat to survive and give it to young junior doctors and train drivers sat in their warm cabins instead. They're also sending millions of your taxpayers' cash overseas to resolve climate change. At the BBC, Jermaine Genus out. I mean, you assume he probably sent pictures of his knob to someone. I mean, whatever. Nothing yet from David Yelland, John Sopel or Emily Maitlis in support of Jermaine. Presumably they save their support for old white BBC pedos. No one can be sure. And finally, Fabrizio, now called Valentina, is a trans athlete in the Paralympics who just took bronze, I think in the 400 metres. Disabled people not only now have to overcome the fact that they have a disability, they also have to overcome the fact they're running against a biological male. But apart from that, and the thing that I look more like Princess Anne every day, I'm going to be used as her stand-in very soon. That's it from Batshit Bonkers Britain.
Okay, so that was the first one with Katie Hopkins. And this is, I'll show you, this one's quite a long one, but I'll show you like the first 2 minutes of this BBC News report.
There are growing fears of a major global trade war tonight after President Trump announced sweeping tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico and China starting tomorrow. And he added that very substantial tariffs would follow for the European Union. Goods exported from Canada and Mexico to the US will be hit with a 25% tariff. Products from China with 10%. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said his country would face difficult times as a result, but promised a forceful retaliation. From Washington, here's our North America editor, Sarah Smith.
He had promised to introduce tough tariffs on day one. President Trump's obviously a couple of weeks late, but clearly excited about one of his favourite policy tools.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary, because tariffs are going to make us rich as hell. It's going to bring our country's businesses back that left us.
President Trump wants both Mexico and Canada to do more to stop migrants crossing their borders and into America, and to stem the flow of illegal drugs, including fentanyl, that's flooding into the US.
The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country.
Hundreds of billions of dollars worth of imports are trucked from Mexico and Canada into America and the other way around. They are each other's biggest trading partners by far. For instance, 90% of the avocados sold in America come from Mexico. Charging a 25% tax on each fruit that crosses the border will hurt Mexican exporters, but it also risks increasing prices for American consumers. Canada's biggest export to America is oil. Even 10% import tariffs risk raising costs for Americans, and of course Canada will also feel the pain if America buys less of their oil. The Prime Minister says he's ready to respond.
If the President does choose to implement any tariffs against Canada, we're ready with a response. A purposeful, forceful, but reasonable, immediate response.
10% tariffs will be charged on all the electronic and other goods that are shipped to America from China. Donald Trump says he wants China to stop fentanyl being exported to America, but of course it doesn't hurt to also punish one of your biggest global competitors. Donald Trump firmly believes he is the world's best negotiator and appears confident that punishing tariffs will force other nations to do what he wants. But if that doesn't happen quickly, he is risking a trade war that could result in American voters paying the price.
And let's talk to Sarah in Washington tonight.
Okay, so that one's a bit longer than I thought, but I thought I'd show you a good insight into that. So, following watching them two videos, I've got 3 questions for you. So, I'd say, which media outlet do you prefer and why? Which one would you say is biased? And what are your thoughts of the representations of the news from both of the outlets? Who wants to start?
I'd probably say the first one was ridiculously biased in this. Obviously, like looking at the format as well, it's obviously filmed like a portrait view. So it's probably something like YouTube Short or I don't know, maybe go on a TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever. And you're just sort of scrolling through and you just come across that. She's delivering it in like a really informal way, and I guess maybe she's trying. Part of her appeal is she's trying to be jokey and informal, and you don't need to sit down and be official BBC, but it's all it's just she's concentrating on like these like really like irrelevant issues like trans athletes and obviously the winter fuel allowance stuff isn't trivial, but she's like really like focused on like taking the piss out of certain groups of people. That's why she's being really relaxed and formal and you can't censor me, that sort of thing. There are like outlets that I do like TLDR News, that's sort of like that. They're informal and they'll give you the news in a non like BBC newsreader way. But yeah, that just comes across as like very, very targeted, very, very poor representation. I think with the second clip, obviously it's a lot longer and uses a lot more official sources, got more of like a more of a structured format and actually using clips. Like it was just her talking. You didn't actually hear what Keir Starmer had said in the first one with Katie Hopkins. There was no clip played. She was just sort of like the mouthpiece throughout. So yeah, BBC is probably the less biased one out of all of them because they didn't actually say their opinion on the tariff. They didn't say say an opinion about I don't know, the fentanyl thing. It's just they say it and then maybe there's sort of an allusion to this could be potentially harmful, but there's no like outright definitive negative or positive opinions expressed.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. What about you, Vic?
I thought the first one was a proper mockery of news. Like I said, I don't really have much trust in the news, but I know that a lot of work gets put into it, and making a mockery of that is absolutely awful. And I know she was trying to be jokey, but wasn't even in like an actually funny way, and she didn't really provide any actual evidence of stuff, which the news actually does. So I definitely preferred the second clip because it was straight to the point. There was proof of what they're talking about, like video footage and quotes. So they actually managed to show stuff off properly of what they were talking about. And there was no mention of their like political beliefs. You could tell there was definitely one with the first clip. And it's just a bit of a mess.
I think it's a good point of contrast as well because she's like insulting the BBC in that first clip. And you actually show like comparing, someone who doesn't like the BBC with the BBC. I guess that's interesting in different approaches. But she's obviously trying to be as I guess her appeal is that she is as un-BBC as you can get, really.
Yeah, perfect. I'd agree. I'd say for me, it's probably obviously BBC for me. Obviously, if people are into that jokey, humorous representation of news, obviously Vic says I would agree with this. Definitely certain stories that she covered and she mentioned were quite of a mockery. So I'd say if you do want that sort of like very, very brief, simplified representation of news, you probably are better off going to her. But if you want that more impartial, balanced coverage of news, where they are transparent in the sources that they use and stuff, obviously, and that proper analysis of what's happening, obviously the BBC is probably better off you to go to. So thanks for that. So moving on to the third slide. So this is traditional media versus social media. So in this slide, it's just some examples of different types of media. So obviously print newspapers, headlines. Obviously the first being the front covers of the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror. And the second being a social platform video of TikTok, a TikTok video from GB News. So obviously, if you can read, obviously if you're struggling to read it, let me know. I'll try and enlarge the pictures if I can. But if you can read them well.
If you click slideshow in the top, that will make it bigger.
Mm.
Actually put it in the presentation.
Is that better?
Hold on. Have you clicked it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it not zooming in?
Not for me.
Yeah, it's not zooming.
It's weird.
Is it not going into...
When I press slideshow, it doesn't...
You know what you might be able to do? Where the toggle bar is to go down with the slides, you might be able to adjust that so it's more to the side and takes up less room.
Yeah.
Because the actual slideshow itself will be minimised and the actual screen will be bigger.
Yeah. I can always enlarge the pictures if you want. I can do that. It's up to you.
If you click slide at the top, and maybe there's something that will let you go into a way of entering, or with the drop down next to slideshow at the top, maybe there's an option with that. Oh.
Try presenter view. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. All right, we've made it. Okay.
Yeah, can you see that well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously looking at the Daily Mail and the Mirror, obviously, let's have a little read of that, if you will. See what you think of that. Obviously, be mindful, obviously, the type of language that they're using, what stories they're covering, the wording of the headlines. Obviously, think of the background of the actual newspaper itself, possibly the reputation of the newspaper, if you know anything about the reputations of the newspaper. Can you see that TikTok video as well? Or
I think you'll just need to click on it to get it going.
I hope you've got your hands free to hold your head in the next couple of minutes while we talk about what many of you will see as wasted taxpayers' money.
It's not just wasted out taxpayers' money, it's outrageous that anybody thinks it's appropriate use of public money for migrants crossing the channel illegally. They can have...
Well, this is a Freedom of Information request from the Daily Telegraph that has got these figures. Guess how much we have spent, local council, since 2022, only 2 years, £141 million on what are described as extra initiatives for people that are hosted in hotels when they come over here on boats. More than 20,000 people, of course, since Labour scrapped the Rwanda plan. And this includes circus training skills.
I mean, you can't get your head around that. What are they? Lion training? Oh, we don't have lions in circuses anymore.
PlayStations.
Driving lessons. £50 an hour.
Tickets to sports events. Now,
so they can go to football matches. A lot of people watching this programme today would probably love to go to a Premier League football match. They can't afford it.
You could say, right, that it's an important ambition to keep people busy. So if you've got refugees, asylum seekers, economic migrants, illegal aliens, as Donald Trump would call them, here, what do we do with them? We don't want them wandering around the streets taking pictures of primary school children like they're doing in that
Teach them English.
Particular town.
Teach them about the British way of life. Teach them about British history.
Well, that's to suppose that they're going to stay. I would really...
They all stay. We never get rid of any of them. We never get rid of any of them.
Good point. Every time I go down one of those cul-de-sacs, I realise I'm talking a sort of sense that doesn't exist in the real world.
They never get sent back.
Do you know what I would spend £141 million on? Processing them in the hotel.
Yes.
Send in qualified processors with their pieces of paper and their laptops to go, right, who are you? Where'd you come from? Can you stay?
Yeah.
That is all we need to spend the money on. Not 141 million on PlayStation.
No, we are the land of milk and honey, and we are the country of a soft touch. So we already know. Last week we were talking about how there's a big warehouse just off the Dover port, the size of a Matalan shop, full of clothes with changing rooms and showers, so they can choose their outfit when they get off the boat because they're wet.
£3,000 a day. And do you know what? I understand that there will be individuals on those boats that have had a hideous life. There will be women and children who've escaped war zones. I get all of that. And we need to somehow, as a country that has always been generous, welcome a proportion of people that need sanctuary. I do maintain that we do need to. You may
Why
not.
don't they apply legally?
Because there isn't a way of doing
Because
so,
they
is
wouldn't
there?
get in, because they wouldn't tick any of the right boxes.
Some of them
because they're
absolutely
illegal.
wouldn't get in. But we're being taken for absolute mugs.
Okay, so after watching them, let's leave some of these questions for you. So, which media format did you prefer to read the news or watch the news, and why? Did you feel a sense of bias with the way these news headlines were portrayed, and why? Which format influenced your political views, or did neither? And which media format did you feel is better for you to keep informed with news, and why? So,
I'd say we'll start with the first one. I don't really like any of them, to be honest. They're all just quite the two text media at the top. They've got like the big bold text, focusing on like really controversial topics surrounded by pictures of women, from what I can see. And I know Daily Mail and the Mirror are ones I probably wouldn't particularly trust. In terms of like print media, they seem very like catch the headlines sort of thing, trying to be as like provocative as possible. I guess there's a particular sense of bias in the one below because you can actually hear them talking, and sort of the views that the people, the presenters they're expressing. You can sort of see that they're very anti-immigration. You can see the one at the top, the Daily Mail, is particularly anti-immigration as well, with like, "I'll ban migrants who claim benefits," you know. So that's a sense of bias. It's a very like very hostile sort of representation. Um, Probably neither represents or influences my political views. They're all just very like aggressive, and that's not something. Let's see news be more impartial. Um, and with the final one, I'd probably say the Mirror seems a bit more keeping you better informed because that's sort of focusing on like a more important topic in terms of like the Southport stabbings, but at the same time, it is quite a disturbing topic. So maybe I wouldn't pick up something that wouldn't be like really appealing to read. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. What about you, Vic?
Out of the two of them, I'd probably prefer to watch the news online just because I have a really bad attention span and half the time I can't sit through reading a full article online about things. But even then, that TikTok was really weird. Like, they weren't focusing on stuff that matters. They were just going on a massive rant that ended up sounding quite racist and derogatory in a way. So I wouldn't really go towards that sort of TikTok with it. But all of them were quite biased, apart from the Daily Mirror. That's the only one that I can see that isn't biased. I mean, the first one, that massive statement to our ban migrants who claim benefits from becoming UK citizens. Yeah, that one's awful. And that TikTok, it didn't really show any proper facts. It was just pure opinion. And it was a really awful opinion, one that can harm people. So, yeah, I don't think they were portrayed very well, especially for quite professional places, professional like formatting. I'd say none of them really influenced me very much just because of that. But if I was going to pick a way to keep informed of the news, I would probably go for online videos.
Yeah, perfect.
I'd probably just to say I don't think I've ever actually bought a newspaper. I don't think I've ever, like, as a young person, gone to a shop. Like, I want to buy a newspaper, physically get it and read it. All my
Yeah, we
news.
were on about this at work the other day about newspapers because you got a fake newspaper there. I didn't even realise newspapers were still in circulation.
Yeah,
Magazines
like,
are.
or on that news app you get on your phone, looking at that, because that has all of them like curated, so you can sort of like scroll through and see the highlighted articles. I think you sort of are losing out in that sense because you're only seeing what the app presents you, but at the same time, probably similar to a newspaper anyway, and you get a bit more variety as well. And often you can see them like contrasting each other. I think the only time that I read the news was a free copy of one called the Lighthouse, which was an anti-vax, anti-deep state globalist free newspaper that they just they given to the supermarket and was like, you can give this for free, and we were using it for cat litter. That's the end. And just out of sheer curiosity, I was like flicking through, reading like the mad things they were saying. That's probably the only time I've actually sat down and like looked at the newspaper.
I love seeing stuff like that. It's really funny to just sit there and read
Yeah,
it. Like, what on earth are you on about?
I guess that's also more like the whole reason I read that was like the novelty aspect of like these are
Mm.
like really really crazy things they're saying, but at the same, I wasn't actually looking for any news or anything that influenced me. It was just sort of the novelty of seeing someone being that brazen.
Yeah, it's the same with the protesters that go around town like once a month, where they'll sit there with all their massive posters. Me and my friend sat there for like half an hour once trying to read each of the signs and pissing ourselves laughing
Yeah,
because it was all just complete nonsense. And someone was saying to me, "Oh, you're so unaware of everything. You don't know anything that's going on." Okay,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
fine with that.
I mean, yeah, I guess it just comes down online. There's a bit more, there's a greater variety of opinion in the sense that there's just so many different sources, and where we can go back to print media, it's a bit more limited. That news TikTok was probably quite different in the sense that it was really, really long. Like, I don't know how long it was, but that more than was that 60 seconds?
I think it was
Usually,
definitely more than 60 seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I'd probably go for about 3 minutes.
That's like really, really long for a TikTok. I can't imagine whoever's doing the social media for GB News is just like not on it. You could like easily cut out some good sound bites and make like a much shorter TikTok that will still deliver their message across. Um, so I
take some
don't,
notes from Duolingo's TikTok.
yeah, I mean, it's just I don't see how anyone would be influenced by that. I mean, old people are watching GB News. I don't see any old people going on TikTok and, you know, scrolling through GB News on its own. I mean, yeah, I probably wouldn't say that like practically influencing someone's opinion. I don't think that TikTok is like a good example. There are probably better ones from, say, I don't know, other news sources that get the idea of the short format. You can just flick through and get the key soundbite.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. Thank you both for that. So moving on. Go back a bit earlier. There we go. So number 4. So this is the last slide of the focus group. So this is the identification of fake news and misinformation. So here are 2 examples of 2 headlines from 2 different media sources. One being via an online news website, Channel 3 Now, which is on your left, and the other on the right, which is from the well-known UK tabloid newspaper, The Sun. So from looking at both of these images, can you identify which source is actually a fake news source, or are both fake news sources, and why? So obviously give yourself a bit of time to read it and then obviously
I
share
think I
your
know. I
thoughts.
think I know the answer to this, so I'm not going
Yeah.
to say anything there. I'll
Yeah,
let
yeah.
you.
Just take your time. If you need more time as well, Vic, just let me know and just a little read.
On a second.
This could potentially be a trick question, but obviously it's up to you. It's your own personal opinion.
I think I'm all good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ready, Alex?
Yeah,
Yeah. So who wants to go first?
I'll let Victor go first.
Okay.
What's going on?
Which one do you think? So which ones do you think? Who wants to share what their thoughts are?
I'll let Victor go first.
The sun doesn't seem real to me. I don't know why. There's just something off about it.
Yeah.
That's what
Can you share why?
Well, the format looks weird. The way that it's produced as well, it looks more like, when you have to scan something to upload onto our websites at college. It looks like someone's done a really bad version of that. And the actual stories that are on there, a bit odd to put on a news outlet.
I can confirm with the Sun it is it's quite an old headline from quite a long time ago. So that is kind of the reason to do the formatting and the layout. But obviously I know where you're coming from with what you've just said. But I just wanted to give you a bit of help in telling you that it's quite an old story.
So I was wrong then.
No, you're not wrong. I just wanted to give you that insight. But I can understand what you said with the way it's photo, like the way it's been taken, the picture.
They're both fake news, aren't they? They're both fake
Okay.
news.
I'll tell you the answer at the end. Can you tell me why you think that, Alex?
Well, because I know that one on the right is the Sun talking about the Hillsborough um, incident that happened in Liverpool. I know the Sun was like accusing the fans of like doing what being responsible for what happened. In reality, it was the police, and there was a big cover up, and the Sun was blaming it on fans. And when it all came out, the Sun's reputation was damaged really badly. Um, and I only know the one on the left is true because at the time there was a lot of fake news going around about the stabbings, particularly like saying, oh, it was a migrant that did it. Seeing that name, Ali Al Shakita, you know, sounds very what is not the name of the person who did the Southport stabbing. So for one, I know it's not true, and knowing that those rumors are about makes me probably think that that's a headline that's stirring it up. You've also got Andrew Tate on the right as well, and Channel
Let's see who
3.
that is.
Hmm?
I couldn't figure out who that was. I've been
Yeah, I'm
in.
fairly sure it is with the ball head and everything. But by seeing channel, I don't know who Channel 3 is now. I don't know that as a source. So I'd probably be a little bit more untrustworthy as to who, what source that actually is. If it was from like, I don't know, The Guardian, the BBC, or, the Daily Telegraph, I'd probably be like, maybe a bit more legitimate, but Channel 3 now, gives it a little bit more clickbaity, article to get people clicking on it.
Yeah. So Alex is right. I can confirm that both of them are fake news sources. They're both misinformation. Obviously, this left being about covering the Southport stabbings. Obviously, we do know that's not true. Obviously, the actual name of the Southport killer, the murderer, was Axel Ruckabana, I think his name was. Who was born in Wales within the UK. His parents were Rwandan immigrants, but he was actually a UK citizen that was born in Wales. Obviously, it's a misleading headline, which was to stir up anti-immigrant propaganda. It was anti-immigrant rhetoric, basically. And on the right, this obviously is also a fake news source, which comes from the Sun newspaper, which was about the basically the vilification of the fans, basically false accusations towards the Liverpool fans at the football match back in 1989, when all the fans, where there was overcrowding at a stadium in Yorkshire, which was and obviously due to failings from the government and obviously the police, and that resulted in many fans. I think it was like 96 Liverpool fans got crushed to death at a football stadium. So, but obviously the Sun newspaper exploited this event and they twisted what the actual facts were in order to basically paint the Liverpool fans as something that they weren't. False accusations like urinating on police and stuff, which just didn't happen. It simply just didn't happen. It's just
They
pure
both have
lies.
like a really clear agenda as well, now that you say that. I mean,
Yeah,
given like the riots that happened from the Southport stabbing,
yeah,
17-year-old insert foreign name was arrested in connection with the stabbings immediately.
yeah.
A lot of people's minds who probably Channel 3 now is catering to. Um,
I'm really sorry, Alex. I've got less than a minute left for the
okay,
recording.
yeah. Well,
So,
that's what they both seem
yeah,
like really clear biases.
Yeah, so thank you so much, both of you, for doing this for me. I'll start another meeting in a minute to say thank you properly, but I'll send this recording on this meeting. Yeah, perfect. Thank you guys for this focus group.